Hill, present. Mark Berry,
Present.
Carrie Steinbach,
Present.
Tim Penich,
Present.
Amy Connell Donahue,
Present.
Lauren Hirsch.
Present.
All right, we have a quorum. We can begin. And this evening, we are going to be talking about our budget, which we'll be voting on later. Mr. Khan, our CSBO, will be giving us a presentation on that. You've seen it in several earlier versions over the past several months. This is something we're required to do by law every year. The budget's been on display for 30 days, correct? For anybody who wanted to see it. So we begin with comments by the administration and the Director of Finance, Mr. Khan.
I will start by saying thank you to Jay for all his hard work on our budget. This has been a very challenging last 18 months for all things, especially budgeting and spending and making sure that we are putting our priorities and our money where our priorities are. So I appreciate the lens Jay's always looking through to make sure that we are being responsible stewards of the community's money. And I just appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you. As Mark said, you've seen this budget in various times before. It hasn't changed significantly since the last time I presented it. So I'm just going to go through and take you through the final numbers and the assumptions. If I can. So this is a history of sort of the financial performance of the district for the past 10 years. The only thing I won't go into depth on this slide. I want to point out that what our fund balance has done. It started off very high. The board took a lot of action to limit the tax levy for a few years and restructure the debt and brought our fund balance down. And then we used a portion of it to renovate our middle school. And so we've been pretty steady ever since. I did want to point out last year, because this will be important as we talk about this year's budget, but this dip in expenditures is related to COVID-19. So last year was actually a significantly harder year to budget because we didn't know what was going to happen. And we used a contingency line last year and just put a big slug in contingency and then moved it out over the course of the year. This year, there was no contingency. It's a lot more predictable. But we do, since we are overlapping a year in which our expenditures went down, we used very few buses last year. We used very few substitute teachers, and we had very limited extracurricular activities available. So you'll see a larger increase in expenditures this year. And that's a lot of that is reflected in the fact that we just had a lower level of expenditures last year, and we're returning to somewhat normal. And then this year's budget is balanced. We have the blue and red bars are equal to each other. So our final budget is balanced. The total operating budget is $18.1 million. The bulk of it is in the education fund. Which is $15 million. So the education fund, when we levy taxes and we spend money, we do it by fund. And these are the funds that make up our operating budget. So education is also called the general fund. Pretty much we can spend that money on anything we want, and it tends to be on instruction and on the kids. O&M stands for operations and maintenance, and that is more taking care of our facilities, making sure they're clean and safe. The transportation fund is for buses. So you can see that, for our busing, IMRF and Social Security, those are the pension funds. So that's kind of retirement. Stands for Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund. That is for non-certified staff, so not teachers basically, but anyone else has their pension through that fund. And then Social Security, they also receive. And that money is held separately because it can only be used for that purpose. And then the working cash fund is kind of our rainy day fund. This is money we levy and we put aside, and we can lend this money to other funds should they need it to operate. Debt service are the bonds that we have issued in the past that we're extending money for. And then capital projects, we don't have a lot budgeted in capital projects this year in this fund. We do spend some capital money out of the operations and maintenance fund, and we can also spend it out of the education fund. This capital projects fund is really reserved for large capital expenditures that would distort your operating funds. And you wouldn't be able to compare on a year-to-year basis. So when we did the middle school renovation, it was $10 million. If we put that in some of these other funds, then the year-over-years would look really strange. So we pull it out of operations and keep it in this fund. But generally operating, we do spend some capital as an annual budget item on an operating basis, and that money is still up in those other funds. So you can see the big zero here. That means we are balanced. Our revenue equals our expenditures. And then below the line, there's a little bit of extra in debt service. So these are our revenue assumptions. Our revenue is actually pretty flat from year to year, basically because we had a significant amount of federal money last year, largely through the free food program that was available, the food assistance program to our families and to the kids during the year. And then our operating funds, our tax levy is going up by 2.8% year over year. That is, there was 2.3% increase on existing property, which is CPI. So the existing budget is being increased by CPI. I don't know if I'm doing that or.
I'm trying to figure it out. I'm gonna see if that's Bill.
Okay. Well, I got to reset. Sorry. Tried this happened with Tracy last time. This is very weird looking.
Is that not you driving the cursor around there?
That is not me now.
The ghost of Village Hall.
Shelley? Can she control it from where she is? We are experiencing operating difficulties. Please stand by. We need to put up a test pattern on the screen.
All right. So anyway,
Old school.
getting back to the revenue, our operating funds are mostly comprised of our tax levy. That is going up by almost 3%. Our debt service is remaining about the same, and we're assuming a 99.5% collection rate, which is historically average. You remember last year we budgeted significantly lower, and we ended up getting all of our revenue by the end of the year. Our interest income rates are extremely low. We're not getting much interest income. We're holding state revenue assumptions flat. And then we do have $300,000 of ESSER money, which stands for the education. I don't remember what it stands for. Elementary and secondary school education. Emergency relief. Thank you. So that money is available. We're not counting on all of that this year. We actually have until September 30th of 2024 to spend that money and claim reimbursement. So this budget currently assumes about $100,000 of that, and with the remainder coming in the future.
Isn't that the ESSER grant money also, you're able to spend some of that retroactively, right?
So yeah, actually we've spent, so there's 3 rounds of it. There's the 1, 2, and 3, the CARES Act, and then CCR something SA, and then the ARP. We've already spent all of that ESSER 2 money. We just have not gotten reimbursed for it yet. We've spent basically ESSER 1 and ESSER 2, and the only thing that's left are the American Rescue Plan funds, which is the largest amount, $250,000, and that is being spent this year mostly on additional staffing that we'll talk about. But we probably will not be reimbursed for it until the following year. So again, looking at the revenue budget, we're about flat, 0.4% net increase. This is largely because our property taxes are going up 3%, and we are getting a lot less federal revenue because we're not having the free food program again this year. You can see a little bit of change by fund, and that's just me moving some money around between the funds to keep our fund balances from getting too large in particular funds, to hold them all around 30%. Our revenue, again, most of it's property taxes. State funding is pretty consistent at 3%. Federal funding is typically about 1%. So we still are getting more federal funding than usual at 3%. And then other local is mostly food service revenue and student fees. Looking at our operating expenditures, they're going up by 6.4%. And again, this is largely because we had a dip in spending last year due to COVID on some of those items I mentioned. And then this year, we're spending some additional money on staff for learning loss, social emotional learning, and contact tracing.
I
So
think what's worth pointing out that most people reading the news and hearing about schools would have thought that we spent more money last year.
Right, and it was dependent.
Some schools did.
It was
but-
very, you either spent a lot more than your budget or a lot less than your budget.
Yeah.
There was no middle ground. It really is, depends on how you handled it.
Mhm.
And I think we were very smart on how we handled COVID. We did not make a lot of knee-jerk reactions, waited till the guidance was set, did not do a lot of testing, put in place the measures that, I think we had considered some capital improvements, and we really put in place the measures that had layered them and that had the higher success rate of preventing COVID without spending a lot of money. So
Unlike some districts which barely had a one-to-one technology program in the district, and
Exactly.
they had to go out and come up with that money
we
to
were
do
already
that.
one-to-one. We did
So it
not.
was- yeah,
We
so-
rented some tents. We didn't go out and buy lots of them.
Yeah.
Just everything I think we did was smart. And I want to give Dr. Leale a lot of credit for that, because there were a lot of districts that just jumped and did things. And I think we had a very thoughtful approach, and it's reflected in our
Mhm.
operating results.
I think we all give both of you a lot of
Yeah,
credit. for
I think,
that. Thank you.
thank you actually for all of that.
So just some of the assumptions behind those numbers, our salaries are going up by 7.3%. Again, this sounds like a lot, but this is again overlapping a year where we spent very little on substitute teachers because our teachers could remotely teach, and we had fewer stipend positions. We could not hold sports and clubs and a lot of those things in person. We did a few, but so the spending was lower there. This includes roughly a 3% increase for all staff salary year over year. We added 3.3 FTE of additional staff members that are funded by that ARP grant, the ESSER 3 grant, for learning loss, contact tracing, and social emotional learning. And then we have no retirements this year and no staff turnover, and that's typically a source of favorability as you replace higher paid teachers with newer teachers. And then we have a significant number of staff in the pipeline, so older staff earning large retirement increases.
So that's where we're talking about the 6%, right?
Those are the 6%
4% when they
staff.
declare retirement, they're eligible for 6% salary increase.
Our benefits are going up 3.5%. And we actually had a great year. Our insurance cooperative had a great year, so this could have been a lot worse. The pension and payroll benefits are proportional with salary, so you'll see some increase, because when your salaries are going up by 7%, your benefits the pension and payroll tax benefits are going to go up by that same percentage. But we are seeing premium decreases. I wouldn't get used to that. It's something that happens every once in a while. It's based on the experience of our entire cooperative, and also on how well the cooperative is managing things like prescription costs and getting rebates from prescription vendors and things like that. So we had a really good year, and we're seeing for next year a decrease of about 1.5% in our insurance.
I think
premiums.
overall, the membership in the cooperative was a wise choice. I forget when we joined, but it wasn't that long.
It was right before I started, probably 8 years ago.
Yeah,
9 years
and I think it was a
ago.
good move.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd point out is the 3% increases for staff. That's all contractually obligated. We're in the roughly midway through a 4-year, 5-year,
5-year
5-year
contract.
contract. So that's just comes with the territory.
Purchase services a lot of our contracts, our custodial contract is tied to CPI. That was the CPI from the prior year. So that was the increase for that contract. Transportation expenditures are going to increase significantly. They will double next year. And this is just as we add normal transportation routes back, as well as after-school buses and extracurricular buses and things that we did not have last year. So it's a large percentage increase, but really it's just getting back to a normal level of transportation spending. We had some additional power school support this year that was necessary. And then we are outsourcing some of our extra staff as well to support social emotional learning and special education. And that's through our True North Special Education Cooperative, and that shows up as a purchase service.
Yeah, you guys have heard it referred to as NSSED. And they've
NSSED.
officially changed, so we're trying to remember to call it the True
Yeah.
North Educational Cooperative 804.
We have bought new teacher iPads this year, so if we do have children who are quarantined at home, that it can facilitate that remote learning for those students. And we also replaced our wireless infrastructure this year. We found out last year when everybody was Zooming all the time that we needed some work on our wireless infrastructure. So we did a lot of work this summer upgrading that. And then we're putting in a new access control system and buying some snow removal and truck maintenance equipment for our maintenance staff. We are seeing a reduction in our special education outplacements. So that is also reflected in the budget. Tracy's doing a good job of trying to bring kids back who can be in their least restrictive environment and participate with some of their regular peers in this school environment. And then we've had some move outs. So
That one you
looking,
never know about though. right?
that you never know about. So I do actually budget one additional student in special education as an outplacement, one additional more than we know that we have, just because it's a significant expense, and should that come through the middle of the year, it's really difficult to make up for it. So we budget one extra, and that's a little bit of contingency planning. So the 6.4% increase, again, I kind of went through the highlights. It breaks down 7.3% salary, 3.5% benefits. Purchase services contain our transportation, so that's the source of that large increase. We're spending less on supplies because we spent a lot on COVID-related supplies last year, as well as, and then our capital spending is going down, and it's actually going down significantly more than this. We had a $150,000 copier lease that we renewed that gets booked as capital last year. So we're spending probably 25% less on capital, or 25%, yeah, less this year than last year. And then by fund, again, education fund is our largest fund, so that's really the biggest driver. You can see our transportation fund going up by almost 100%, operations and maintenance 6%, and then 4% for the pension funds. You look at what we spend our money on, we buy very little stuff, about 4%, about 5% of our spending is on stuff, and the rest of it is salaries, benefits, purchase services, which are really people. If you include our debt service, our salaries and benefits are about 2/3 of our spending. And then if you excluded our debt service and just looked at operating funds, it'd be about 3/4 of our spending. So it's a very people-intensive business, education.
And it's been that kind of same level for as long as I can remember.
Yeah. So the amount of inflation we typically see are related to salaries and benefits. Benefit inflation tends to be high, and then salary inflation is the biggest driver of our year-over-year cost increases. This is a look at our debt service schedule. Each debt service issue is in a different color, but it remains pretty flat through the year 2029. And then starting in year 2030, all that remains is the debt that was issued for the middle school. So as a board, we'll need to talk about and plan for what we do out into the future. If we want our tax rate to drop that much, or if we want to issue some more debt in those out years to have our tax rate go down, but keep it a little bit more stable, and then use that money to support our facilities.
And prior to, for the new guys, prior to 3-4 years ago, those first 7-8 bars were all over the place because we had older debt service that we refinanced when the rates were really low, and we deliberately leveled it off so Jay and the business office could have a much more predictable expense every single year. So it wouldn't be something that we would have to play games with.
And this is good for taxpayers also, because they're used to, so they don't see big swings.
Yeah.
And I would also say the board did a lot of work refinancing and taking advantage of low rates, and saved about almost $4.5 million in interest. Refinanced $25 million of bonds over the last 5 years or so.
Yep.
So that's also a big win for taxpayers, although they might not notice it in their tax bill.
Long term.
It is there.
That's it. Yep.
So Jay, you said we'll have to talk about this in 2030 is when it really changes. So when do we need to start talking about
Well,
this?
between now and the end of the year, I'll be bringing long-term projections. So I'll take kind of what we know now and project out at least 5 years and see what our fund balance profile looks like. And then that will, using that information, that we'll start to talk about kind of what the needs are. It'll assume some level of capital replacement.
Okay.
But I mean, it's not an urgent thing because really beyond 5 years, the long-term projections aren't very good. So,
Okay.
We can start talking about what the district is going to look like in 2025 or 26, and that still leaves us 3 or 4 more years until something needs to be done. So
That should probably be
Okay.
part of our strategic planning too. It's kind of like that big picture facilities and grounds, imagining
Yes.
kind of stuff.
but it's something that we look at every year and we project out 5 years. So we're always looking because it's very difficult to make big changes. So we make small changes year by year. And
Sure. Thanks.
yeah, it's a good question though. And then looking at our fund balance, this is the amount of money that we have sort of in reserves for really liquidity needs, for our bondholders like to see that we have a cushion. So that really helps our bond rating to have some fund balance. And then we use this money to fund, unexpected expenditures and things like that. The state recommends at least 25% of your operating expenditures in fund balance. Our board policy is between 30 and 50%. So right now we're squarely in the middle of that. We don't want it to get too high because that's taxpayer money that we're just sitting on and holding, but we want to make sure that we have enough cushion in case we need it. And then also to aid with long-term planning so that, for example, when we did the middle school, we didn't fund that exclusively through bond issues. We used some of our fund balance for that, and then we issued bonds for the rest. So there's, and with the way the fund balance works is it's just one big number, but the board has the ability to reserve that money for future expenditures and to earmark it for different things. So that's part of that whole discussion about fund balance and how we want to use it. So you can see it by fund. I think the IMRF fund, as you can see, I was moving money around before. We typically look at the total, but I need to make sure that any individual fund doesn't get too high because if it does, then we start seeing tax rate objections.
Tax rate rejection?
Objections. So
Objections.
you're not allowed to hold more than 2 times your average 3 years of operating expenditures in fund balance, like legally. So people look at those individual funds and then attorneys will file and say you're over taxing
O&M
us
fund.
in that fund.
Yeah.
So then we started having to issue rebates. So I just try to keep an eye on that. And that is the budget for next year. It's balanced. So our fund balance at the end of this last year was almost $8 million, and I'm expecting that to stay the same for next year.
Anybody have any
Thank you.
questions for Mr. Khan?
I have a quick question, and I apologize if you went over this at some point over the last few months, and now I'm not sure that I'm understanding what I'm going to ask, but hopefully it makes sense. For the transportation, is it correct that we're getting less money from the state because we had less people bused last year? Am I understanding that correctly?
Transportation funding from the state is on a reimbursement basis.
Okay.
So that is correct.
Okay.
We do not get very much in reimbursement because of our, when they calculate it, they look at your local sources of revenue, and then the reimbursement amount is based on that for regular transportation. Special education transportation is reimbursed at 80% of your prior year's expenditures. So because our special ed spending and transportation was lower last year, we will see less of a reimbursement this year. But it is not a significant amount.
Okay.
We typically get, I think, I want to say $80,000 of reimbursement for special education. And so that's maybe down to 50 this
Okay.
year.
So that fluctuates based on kind of
Right.
what you spent the previous year.
Exactly.
Okay, that's all I was
Since
curious
last year,
about.
we had a lot of our special education students remote learning. They were not being transported, so
Okay.
we spent a lot less.
Okay,
And we'll see a lower reimbursement this year. That is correct.
all right, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? I would suggest that anybody going to the school board conference this November, if you haven't already done so, on the Friday before the conference, the first day, they have some extended seminars, and almost always they have some stuff on school board finance that it's not the most exciting topic, and you need some coffee when you're there, but it will shed some light on some of this stuff for you, may help make sense of it. So-
Are you presenting this year, Jay?
I am presenting again this year, pretty much the same presentation.
Jay is a
last year.
rock star
We'll
at
be
this
your
thing.
hype
He-
squad.
People
I'll be
talk
there.
about
Oh,
him.
he
like,
is,
yeah.
he is like the hero.
Give me your softball questions. I'll be like every 5 minutes.
Okay, so we have to, Shelley, if, I don't know if you can hear me, but is there any public comment to this?
Not at this time.
Okay,
I want to announce there will be public comment at the next
Yeah,
meeting. as well.
yep. And is there any further comment or anything that the board would like to say about this? I'd like to thank Jay and
Thank you.
Lisa for their hard work to make this a balanced budget. We are going to need a couple of minutes at the close of this budget session to correct a technical problem with the camera. So we are running a little late till the regular meeting. We apologize. We'll be getting up and running as soon as possible. We will have open public comment at that meeting, at the beginning, at the end of the meeting. So please stand by if you are looking to do that. Yes, and so at 7:13, may I have a motion to adjourn the budget hearing?
So moved.
Second, anybody?
Second.
Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach.
Yes.
Tim Penich.
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue.
Yes.
Andy Duran.
Yes.
Ann Hill, yes. Mark Barry.
Yes. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you. We'll be back as soon as we can.
If there are currently any panelists having technical difficulties with their camera, you may need to log off and re-log in.
All right, so we are going to go begin this meeting. You guys all set to go?
Yes.
Bill, I hope you're with us. You ready? All right, so welcome everybody to the Lake Bluff School District 65 Board of Education regular meeting for September 28th, 2021. And could you please call the roll?
Carrie Steinbach,
Present.
Tim Penich,
Present.
Amy Connell Donahue,
Present.
Andy Duran,
Present.
Ann Hill, present, Mark Barry,
Here.
Lauren Hirsch. Present.
All right, we have a quorum. We can begin. Before you start, will you guys all please stand and join me saying the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We now offer the opportunity for public comment. We have nobody in the audience, but if we have written comment or anybody on Zoom with a hand raised, we can do that. Shelley, do we have anybody waiting?
None at this time, Mark.
No written comment either?
I do have two.
Okay, we do have written comment to be read here.
Okay, so we have a comment from Lauren LaPietra. And the comment is, I oppose the mask mandate. And then we have one more comment from Laura Breakstone. I would like to thank the board, the administration, and the wonderful staff at District 65 for all they have done to safely keep our kids in school, for listening to the science, and for all of their dedication to the District 65 families. Please know that you are supported by the majority of parents in our school district. Although I cannot be present in person tonight, I'm concerned that this board meeting will have the same results as District 67's last meeting, where a group of speakers who are not residents of the district came to scream and spread misinformation about masks. As such, I wanted to be a voice expressing my support for the board and the school and all they have done since the start of the pandemic. I'm thankful for District 65's transparency, communication, and thought process. I am so grateful that our children are in the school district. Thank you.
Thank you. No other public comment, unless anybody on the board has public comment. I would also then offer the opportunity for the board to suggest a future agenda item on another upcoming agenda, something that you think is that important that we discuss, or if you have an item that you think is worth mentioning in a brief discussion this evening. You could always email or reach out to myself or Dr. Leali with that in the future if you think of something later. All right, so we'll dive into the reports. And I notice we have on the screen tonight Nicole Elliott for the PTO report. Would you like to go first?
Sure, thanks. Thanks, everyone. Hi, I'm Nicole Elliott. I am the district PTO president, and we have had a great start to the year. We began by supporting the teachers at the Meet the Teacher event on August 24th at the elementary school. We've had one Bluffer night at Pucks. Thank you for all of their continued support of the community in our district. We were present at curriculum nights, trying to just spread some information about the PTO and gather involvement. We will be having the Charleston Rap Fundraiser that will begin on October 12th through November 2nd. And then I'm very happy to announce the return of the Pumpkin Chase and the Pumpkin Fest, both of which will be on October 23rd. We're doing it outside this year on the 23rd, just to help promote the safety of the event and just knowing that outdoors is a little bit safer for everyone. So we'll hope for good weather for the fest. The chase will be rain or shine. And you should be receiving communications about each of those, and registration is open for the chase, and we'll be sending information soon to get tickets for the fest. We are also convening like a small committee to just kind of discuss how to best support initiatives for the schools. There's been some requests which will be voted on for items, and we're also just looking to broaden our support for activities and experiences. So we are working with a small subgroup of the PTO on that as well. Any other questions?
Any questions for Nicole?
Thank you
Thanks,
for your
Nicole.
support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to the Lake Bluff Elementary School Principal's Report. Principal Kelly Bay is going to introduce some new staff, I believe, tonight.
I am. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I have a handful of new staff members that I have the pleasure of introducing this evening. And before I begin, I just want to note that each of these new staff are entering our schools and our team during a very different time. The majority of these staff members were screened and interviewed on a purely sort of Zoom or remote basis. Some of them I did not meet in person face-to-face until they came in for their first day of work or to set up their classrooms. And so that's a very different kind of feel from my perspective, and I know also for them. And so I feel like we've started the year with a whole different level of trust and bond. And so I really appreciate that. And I want to extend gratitude to each of these team members for taking a risk with us. We are very lucky to have them, and each of them is in the most perfect spot they can be in. So without further ado, and really in no particular order, I'll introduce, and if that person can just smile and wave, and that way your names are on the screen, but it will help everyone to know who you are. So the first staff member I'd like to introduce is Sydney Lichten. Sydney is a first grade teacher here at LBES. She graduated from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. And a fun fact is that her family is most important to her. She finds listening to music or watching TV most calming. Welcome, Sydney.
Thank you. It's nice
The
to
next
meet
staff
you.
member. Thank you, Sydney. The next staff member I'd like to introduce is Christine Suk. Christine is a second grade teacher here at LBES. She graduated from Northeastern. My fun fact for her, something to know, is that her hobbies are snowboarding, crafting, reading, and she finds using her Cricut to craft most calming. Welcome, Christine. We're so lucky to have you. The next staff member I'd like to introduce is Mr. Riley Worthen. Riley is teaching pre-K music through second grade music and is supporting with our STEAM and Makerspace initiatives. He graduated from Brigham Young University. And the fun fact that I'd like to share is that his kids, spending time with them, playing outdoors, brings him joy and fills his bucket. When he's needing calm, he listens to choral music. And Eric Whitaker is the composer of choice. So I Googled Eric Whitaker and I can't wait to listen to some more audio samples. Welcome, Riley. We're really lucky to have you. The next staff member that's with us this evening that I'd like to introduce is Susan Banks. Susan actually started on our team in the front office as our secretary last April, and we did not get the joy or pleasure of introducing her. So Susan graduated from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. Fun fact, her hobbies include walking, biking, hiking, canoeing. We know this is a fact because the canoe was on top of her car for several days in our parking lot. She cross-country skis, she does yoga, and she also noted that enjoying her family and friends equals personal fulfillment for her. So Susan, we are lucky to have you. Many community members, parents, and staff members hear your voice frequently on the phone. So welcome to our team. We have 3 staff members that were unable to join this evening, but I do think that they deserve a moment. So I just want to also introduce Jennifer Denhart. She is a school nurse here. She graduated from Purdue. Fun fact, she has the sweetest little boy named Maxwell at home. And I need to also share that she is making a seamless transition during a time where the health office is one of the busiest zones within our building. So she was on our staff as Jennifer Murray last year, now married with the name Jennifer Denhart. We're very lucky to have her as we navigate another year with lots of needs in the health office. Jennifer Hale was brought in as a health clerk this year. She attended University of Wisconsin, Oshkosh, and she has been an enormous gift to our team. She is the perfect fit in our health office. Her love for kids and ability to engage with students pre-K through 5th grade is really a joy to watch. So welcome to Jessica. And then finally, Adrian Olmstead is a new staff member here at LBES, although she is not new to the district. Adrian is teaching 1st grade this year here at LBES, formerly known as the drama teacher at the middle school. She graduated from Michigan State, and watching her kids and her students learn and grow and be happy is what fills her bucket. Exercising is what helps her to feel calm. So thank you all for that we're able to join in tonight. Again, we're very lucky to have you. I appreciate the chance to introduce our new staff. Thank you.
Hey, welcome everybody, and thank you for coming to Lake Bluff. We really appreciate all that you do. All right, thank you. So now we're going to go on to the principal's report from the middle school, Mr. Nate Blackmer.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce our new staff at Lake Bluff Middle School, and I'll acknowledge in advance, we didn't have the opportunity to connect on fun facts, so I'll make them up as I go, and I'll do my best to not embarrass anyone. I'll start actually with Elena Grant. Elena will be teaching math in 6th and 7th grade, and congratulations to Elena. She was recently married, and that was just this past summer. So hired her under one name and brought her into the building under a new name, and we're very excited, and congratulations to her. Ryan Ingram is currently our drama and STEAM teacher, resided in Texas for most of his life and has moved to the Midwest and is loving Chicago, and is my understanding had Chicago on his bucket list. So we're glad we could help him to check that off, and we're thrilled to have him as a new staff member. Also, Tommy Ahrens. Tommy Ahrens is our 6th grade science teacher. Tommy and I race to work together in the morning. She lives over in my neck of the woods, and we once in a while leapfrog down 176 on the way to Lake Bluff. So we're thrilled to have Tommy in our building as our 6th grade science teacher. And finally, Megan Lukashevsky. There you are. Megan is wearing a number of hats in our district. She's primarily working as our SEL coordinator, but is also jumping in where she's needed with her school psychology background and social work background to help support kids. We are thrilled to have Megan as part of our staff, also newly engaged. So congratulations to Megan. We're very excited. I'm also going to point out one of our staff members that wasn't able to be here tonight, Seth Deutsch. He is teaching 7th and 8th grade language arts, huge baseball guy, lots of experience coaching, and has jumped in to help with all kinds of extra duties as well. So we're thrilled to have Seth as part of our staff. And finally, as Kelly had already mentioned, we had a few people who jumped around a little bit and moved into some different roles in different buildings. We are thrilled to have, I'm drawing a blank, I'm sorry. Goodness.
You can
Where
do
did my
it.
list go?
And
Andigo, my fault. Thank you. Good grief. Andigo has been a fantastic addition to our building. Thank you, Tracy. Much appreciated. Andigo is helping in our student services department. And when we asked if there's anyone interested in moving over to accommodate some increased needs at the middle school, Ann was one who raised her hand, and we're just so thrilled that she did. And we're grateful to have her in our building. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you coming to Lake Bluff. So we're going to move on to Mr. Khan. Do you have a report tonight for the business office?
A very quick one. I just wanted to let the board know that due to that large amount of federal funding that we received last year, we are now over the threshold. We were put over the threshold, which requires a single audit, which is a separate audit of federal programs. The threshold is $750,000, and we typically don't get even close to that, but we received almost $500,000 in food service assistance. So I'll be bringing an updated engagement letter from our auditors in October. There's about a $3,000 cost to that additional audit that's required now.
Okay.
And this should be just a 1 or 2 year thing.
This is in addition to our regular annual audit.
Correct. So that brings the total from 30,000 to 33.
Will it be done at the same time?
It will be done in November. So the audit has been completed. To this point, we're just working on the reports, and then the deadline for the single audit is later in the year. So they used to be do at the same time. They've kind of decoupled them so that they could get the financial audit done first, and then the single audit done later this year.
Any questions for Mr. Khan? Thanks, Jay. I see that we have a report from our Director of Student Services, Ms. Tracy Rorick.
Hi, good evening. Yes, so I just wanted to go over just a couple of things. The first is that each year we report to the board and to the state our enrollment on the 6th day of school. This helps us track our enrollment over time to see increases and decreases in enrollment throughout the years. So our 6th day of school this year was September 1st, and our enrollment was 857 students. Last year on the 6th day of school, we had an enrollment of 869 students. So we did decrease our enrollment by 12 students, which was about 1.3%. The good news is we've had a number of students enroll since then. So our numbers are up from this reporting. The next thing that I wanted to share is that.
Tracy, can I make a suggestion that we see those numbers every year? Would it be possible the next time or some maybe time in between to see a trend line of the totals, probably the total for the district and the total by building for, if we have it for 10 years or so?
We can get that.
I think that would be helpful just to keep so that we're more aware of it than we are. Thanks.
So for district and by building for 10. Yep.
Yeah.
We
thanks.
have all that data available to us. I can put something together.
Great, thanks.
All right. The next piece is just a change from some of the data presented at the last board meeting. As you may recall, Lisa or Dr. Leali and I did share a presentation on board goal 1 and board goal 6. After reviewing some of that data for our Thrive stakeholder group, we realized that some of the growth data, while listed correctly on the slides for students who met their growth, one piece that was not portrayed within our slides was the students who had higher than expected growth. And so we wanted to make sure that we weren't showing lower scores or less students meeting their growth or growing at a higher than expected rate. And so you'll be receiving a memo in your next board packet that shows the percentage of students with that high growth, and then slides that show when you add the students who met their growth and had high growth together, what that overall percentage is when you look at those together.
And actually, Shelley has placed it in the packet for tonight, but we'll replace it in the next one as well, so that if you have any questions, we can answer those.
Yes, so there's the original 2 slides that were shown for map reading growth and map math growth, along with the 2 slides for reading and math for the high growth. And then when you combine those together, those additional 2 slides, along with a link to the presentation if those slides were added in. And then the last piece that I have is just a little bit of an update on the work that we are doing as a district with Lake Forest 67 and 115. So my counterparts in those districts, we meet monthly to talk about all of our work in the area of special education. We're already beginning to plan for our 8th grade transition meetings. That starts very early in the year. And then a second piece that I have been working with some of the teams on is developing some parent offerings in terms of evening events. So we will have one this week. It's actually tomorrow night. It's called The Evolution of Inclusion. We'll have some parent moderators on there, so you may see some familiar faces if you're able to attend. That's led by one of our presenters named Carol Quirk. She's also working with our staff on inclusive practices, and then also the staff in 67 and 115. And then on October 5th, some of our teachers have been working with staff members in Lake Forest 67 and 115 for a parent presentation on executive functioning. So that will also be an evening event for families. And that's all I have.
Any questions for Tracy? Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the president's report. This is a little bit unusual for me. I've never done a president's report that was like this. I kind of jotted down some notes and I'm going to wing it a little bit, but I'm going to start by saying we're looking for family, parent, caregiver support and help on an issue. Perhaps you have heard of a social media thing going around called the TikTok. It's on TikTok, the TikTok challenge called Delicious Licks. Devious Licks. Delicious. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gotta lighten it up a little bit. Devious Licks. And the crux, for those of you not familiar, the crux of this challenge is for kids in schools to vandalize bathrooms, right? It's that simple. And we are having quite a bit of this in our district. It's costing us money. It's costing us administration time. And so we understand that kids have been out of the buildings for quite a bit. They didn't have as much practice with how to behave in schools over the past year. But we would appreciate any support coming from the home to talk to your kids about this kind of thing and how it is inappropriate. And we would like to move forward and see this go away as soon as possible. So I don't know if administrators have anything to add on that, but we would just like to bring that to the community's attention and ask you to have conversations with your family and your kids, how this is inappropriate and shouldn't happen in schools.
Can I make one addition? That
Sure.
any TikTok challenge is probably not a good idea to do at school.
Probably, although I'm not familiar with TikTok, so.
We can talk.
I mean, I know what it is, but.
No.
All right. Okay, so we're gonna go have a superintendent's report.
And mine is very short, and I appreciate the support of the board on that issue. I also appreciate the support of our administrators and custodians, our nursing staff. I just want to remind folks that we have gotten so much more back to normal this year, which is fantastic, but we're not out of the woods yet. We still have a lot that we're doing to make sure that our schools are staying safe and that we're supporting the health of our students. Kelly alluded to the fact that our nurses' offices are very busy. Our front offices are very busy. We're working on getting testing on site up and running in our district. There's still a lot that's going on right now that's abnormal, additional work. So we appreciate the community's patience and support for us, partnership in working with us, the health department and our kids, and just trying to keep ourselves rolling and keep this as effective and productive school year as possible.
All right, so we're going to move on to our discussion items and presentations. And item A is the Thrive Task Force update. Dr. Leali will provide an update for her September 15th meeting that we had a few weeks ago.
Thank you. Yes, this is going to be a quick update. The task force did meet on September 15th in the evening, and we presented a lot of the information that we presented at the last board meeting, which was historical and current data on student achievement and growth. We presented some diversity, equity, and inclusion information. And then we also presented some more research on diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts and how those can impact student achievement and growth in a positive way. So as we talked about at the meeting, that task force will be working on creating an action plan in the long term to address the 5 pillars of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which include family and community partnerships and engagement, student voice, systems and processes, curriculum and instruction. So we're working on those pieces together. And then in the short term, our next meeting will actually just be coming together around common vocabulary so that as we're developing our plan, we all have a shared understanding of what we're actually talking about. We did send a survey. So as a reminder, the task force has community members, parents, board members, and Andy are on our task force, but I know we had some other board members watching. We have staff as well and our administrative team. So we sent a survey the following day to collect some more information from the group, some feedback on the first meeting, and some information on next steps. Part of what we gathered was folks' perceptions on our strengths and challenges based on that meeting. Parents from the group felt some strengths of ours were family and community engagement and social emotional learning support. The staff also felt that social emotional learning support was a strength, as well as curriculum and instruction. On the challenges side, parents feel like student voice, opportunities for student voice might be a challenge for us, something to work on, as well as climate and culture. And our staff also felt that climate and culture was a challenge that we needed to work on, as well as systems and processes. So a lot of that makes sense. And we've asked people to indicate their level of interest in working in each of those areas so we can create some subgroups and start working on developing these action steps. And we have, generally speaking, most parents interested in working on creating opportunities for student voice and engagement, as well as climate and culture. And staff are also interested in working on that as well. So we're really, really interested in getting student voice out in the forefront, making sure our students are helping to guide our decision-making in this area and really helping support what our next steps are as a community to make sure that all of our students are feeling a sense of belonging and achieving and growing the way we want them to here in District 65.
These meetings are available to view on video if you go to our website, correct?
Yes, so our first meeting is on our brand new Thrive webpage, which you can access from the district's homepage. And that is where we will keep all of the information, communications. Right now, that first meeting is up there, recorded. It was a Zoom presentation. And not all of our meetings will be done that way. So one of the things that we're going to be talking about as a group is when we do have a working session, how will that information be communicated out to the community? What's going to be housed on the website? Because we really do want to make this as transparent a process as we possibly can, while balancing the need for work time and just really engaging and digging deep into those conversations as a working group. So it's going to evolve. We're really going to be trying to take feedback from the group as we move forward so that we can make sure that our action plan really reflects what we want as a community, what our students need, and what is going to be giving us the most leverage moving forward.
Any questions?
Do we have the next meeting scheduled yet?
It is tentatively scheduled for October 13th, and we are looking for a daytime time. So it's going to be probably from 1 to 2:30 on October 13th. That communication will be going out shortly. I'm just making sure that we have all the players available at that time. We're going to try to kind of go back and forth between daytime and evening time. I know that some, definitely our teachers feel like they don't want to be away from their kids, but that's also a time that they're usually working. And then, you know, parents have a need for that evening time. So we're just going to try to balance it. When we get our subgroups going, we might be able to break away from all meeting at the same time to more meetings that are more convenient for the makeup of the groups. So we're just going to try to work with folks who volunteered their time.
Any other questions on that? Okay, it's discussion item 7B is our legislative priorities update. And just in case people aren't aware, this is new for us. We have a couple of members of our board, Andy and Amy, volunteered to work with members from Lake Forest District 67, their elementary district, and District 115, the high school district, to put their heads together and brainstorm some ideas for legislative advocacy. And Dr. Leali and they are going to take us through some of what they've done over the past, since we last spoke about it.
Sure, I'll start us off, and I appreciate that some of the work even began last year, right? As we were
A little bit.
thinking about how this might be structured, and appreciate Andy and Amy volunteering to spend some time with the other board members in the 3 districts. It is a board committee, and there have been some priorities that have been identified and some discussion back and forth, but there's only been one actual meeting, I know, and we're waiting for a little bit of follow-up. But at this point, we have kind of a bulleted list that the administrative team has been able to give some feedback on, and that is going back to District 115, I think, at this point for some more feedback on their side. So
Correct. And then they're going to roll it out at their meeting and get feedback from there, and then basically bounce it back to us. And so everyone's taking a look at it, all 3 districts, and giving input. And the idea is to create one document where all of us are in agreement on what the legislative priorities are, so that when they take it forward, we're all behind it.
And so they are not looking for feedback from us tonight or
Not
right
tonight,
now?
no.
Okay.
They have a document that we've all put together a document, and they're rolling it out on their side first, and then it'll come back to us.
Okay.
And it's close, I believe, close to being finalized.
So if anybody's interested, this is available in the board packet for tonight, which is available online to see where the draft version of this is headed right now.
I'll just add, thanks to John Noble and 115 board member for taking the lead on it. He's been really driving the process forward. So it's been great to have his leadership.
So any comments we should hold for later?
Well, you're welcome to.
I just am curious about like I have questions about the actual bulleted list, and then just kind of who are we advocating? Like, are we working with Representative Morgan and Senator Morrison, or like, I know like the Lake Forest districts are part of the Ed Red group. Lake Bluff is not. Is that something like we're looking to be a part of? I just don't know. I'm just curious about what where this is all going.
All good questions.
Good questions. I don't think the answer to that is known yet. Yeah,
Okay.
I think we have the same questions actually. So I think it's all very, very early. I know that 115 is done in 67, done a lot of work directly with Bob Morgan and Representative Morgan, Senator Morrison and others. We have not done that obviously directly. I know you do, Lisa, but so I think those are all questions that still have to be answered for sure. And I'll say that the idea behind the combined, priorities and documents is to give some power behind what we all want to push for, legislatively, especially with our local reps and senator. But I also think there will be opportunities for us as a district to maybe advocate and push for things that they aren't interested in, vice versa. So I don't think we are it all tied to 115 or 67. I don't think we're interested in that. I think it's a teamwork on the things we can align on, and then we can also do things on the outside as well. So I would propose that we bring that up for discussion at a meeting, because I don't think any of us were ready to do that tonight, but I think that we should bring that up for discussion.
And I think in terms of big themes, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of the priorities focus around local control.
For sure.
So
I
a
was gonna
lot
say,
of,
a lot of it
a lot of
aligns, for
it has
sure.
to do
Yep.
with that. And then, some of it is about sort of unfounded mandates and giving some more clarity around some of the things that we need to do as districts and fair comparisons between districts. So some of it are those kinds of things. But I think as each district kind of brings that plan forward and has discussion, that will give us more information to discuss then also and really decide if that's something we want to get behind.
Can I make a suggestion that when it comes time for us to get, as a board, to give feedback, can administration put together a memo
Yep.
with your position on these things so that we can consider that when we discuss it?
You sure can.
And then the other thing is, you mentioned EdRed. I wonder if anybody would like to elaborate. When I first came on the board, we belonged to EdRed, but I wonder if everybody even knows what that means.
I do not know what that means.
I only do after my meeting. with Joe.
Yeah.
So this is a group that advocates on behalf of school districts, and it's sort of a collective group.
Yeah.
And basically, they staff attorneys and support to help school districts understand pending legislation as it's moving through the pipeline so that we can be prepared. And they provide us a lot of updates and a lot of background. There are some meetings where we can give input if we decided to do that, if we decided to be members. And so that's something we can consider looking into if we move into this arena and we feel like we really want to make sure that we're fully informed. It's a good organization that helps with a lot of these discussions, providing background and things like
I
that.
think they support like a couple hundred districts. If I'm not
A lot,
mistaken,
yeah, a
right?
lot of districts are members.
And it is,
Mhm.
there's a cost associated, there's dues, right? When I first came on the board, we were for a few years, but I don't remember when that faded out, but
Yeah,
was that
it's-
before you, were we EdRed before, after you?
I
got
think it
here?
was during the time I was here.
That we discontinued it? Yeah, so I would say that may be something to talk about in the future as well. Any other questions on the legislative priorities? And for anybody watching, it is available in the board packet to review what they're talking about. All right, so now we go on to the school maintenance project grant. Administration is recommending that the board approve and authorize the Director of Finance and Operations, CSBO, to submit an application for a school maintenance grant in the amount of $50,000 and reserve local funds in the amount of $50,000 to meet the matching requirements. The grant will fund a $125,000 project to make our elementary school playground accessible to students of all abilities. The project is tentatively slated for the summer of 2022. And is that Dr. Leali or Jay or both?
I can introduce it. I mean, I think this is something, the accessibility of our playgrounds is something that we've wanted to address for some time. And I think this is a great solution to try to help us fund that project, but it is something that's been on our radar. And certainly something that we want to make sure that all of our students have access to in a safe way. So I'm going to let Jay explain a little bit more about the matching funds and kind of how this has been budgeted for, and Tracy can weigh in too on what we're thinking about in terms of accessibility.
So the first round, there's several rounds of this grant, but the state has made available $50,000 grants to school districts for various building projects. And then it's up to school districts to apply for the funding. And there's an order of priority in which these grants are funded. The first is any kind of emergency, if there was a disaster or something and schools need to fund capital improvements for that. And then close behind that are what they call health, life, safety issues. So anything that was identified as a health or life safety issue in an annual inspection or a 10-year inspection, or something that will provide handicap accessibility. So I thought that this project, which we had intended to do anyway, aligned nicely with this grant opportunity because it would move us towards the front of the line and hopefully be able to help fund this project. We were anticipating doing the project anyway. The total amount of the project was around the $100,000 mark. So the grant will give you up to 50,000, providing that you match those funds. So if it was an $80,000 project, we would be paying 40 and they'd be paying 40. And so we can take full advantage of the grant with this project. We were planning on funding the whole $125,000 out of our district budget. If we did not get the grant, there is some flexibility in that number. We could do the bare minimum, which is the surfacing, or we could, I think if we are able to get the grant, it will help us to be able to afford some additional equipment that would be desirable for providing opportunities for kids. So this approval tonight is just to submit the grant and reserve the funds. And then the project is still something that is being looked at and is under consideration for next summer under next year's budget.
So it's not a commitment to a project, it's a commitment to a grant, to writing the grant?
It is, in order to submit for the grant, they require that the board approve that project and the reservation of matching funds. So they don't want to issue a $50,000 grant and then have a school district not be able to afford the project. So they require this step to be
okay
as part of the procedure.
And we're expected total is about 125.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments about this?
Do you have,
Concerns?
sorry, do you have any idea of the likelihood that we'll get the grant, or is it just?
I do not. I
Okay.
think that there are a number of projects I was considering that we have in the pipeline, and I chose this one because I think it has the highest probability of being funded, but I don't for sure.
Okay.
And there are several rounds of these grants, so if we did not get it in this round, we could apply for an additional grant in the second round.
I have one.
Actually,
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry. I think Ann and I are probably thinking the same thing, but you mentioned that it has to be matched. So do you have to show that match to receive the grant? So do we already
Yes,
as a
we would.
district, we're allowed to be the matcher of that gift? Does that make sense? Or do we have to go outside of district funds to match the grant?
Oh, you mean like fundraising?
Yeah, but as complicated as I made it. Like, you said that they'll give us 50,000 if we can match 50,000 from
Correct.
somewhere else.
Within our budget.
Mean it comes
Can
from
we
us.
be those people, or do we have to go out and fundraise? Yeah.
No, it could come from any local source. If it was donated to the district, it's still considered district funds.
Okay.
But it has to be, we couldn't say, have a $50,000 project and say, we want you to fund the whole thing. We'd have to document that the project costs that we've spent is at the 50,000, and then they would kick in the additional 50,000.
So you're thinking this project, if it goes forward, would be summer of 2022?
Correct.
So it's not budgeted in the budget we just saw?
That is correct. Yep.
Anybody else? I have a couple thoughts on the proposal, which we don't have to address tonight, but just some questions that popped into my head based on my prior life doing some environmental contracting when I used to work. One has to do with the safety of that solid rubber pour, that it's going to be a poured rubber mat on the playground. I know that sometimes, well, I remember when they put down the rubber chips, there was concerns about off-gassing and the source of those rubber chips coming from old tires, and there'd be steel belted radial tire pieces still in there. And so my concern is more about the health and safety of the kids and smell when the thing gets heated up in a hot summer day. What are we smelling? What are we breathing? Is the material tested? And then the other thing that struck me as unusual, and granted my experience is old, but and this is very weedy, so I apologize in advance, but the line item for the removal and disposal of the loose rubber mulch for $7,100 to just dig it out. struck me as really large number, but
I'll do it for 7. But I think it's because they have to dispose that
yeah,
bad stuff.
Yeah,
Just-
and that's stuff that we can all,
just
as
an
we,
observation.
as we work on the project, we'll address all those things. in
I just
future.
wanted to speak my mind, that's all.
And this is the front parking lot. I mean, front playground.
This is the front playground, correct?
And we have done some work in the back playgrounds. I
Yes,
think,
actually, this
yeah.
surface exists in the back
Yeah.
playground. We did.
Oh, this is we did this. with
We
that
did this in
surface?
the rear
Oh,
playground.
interesting.
We didn't do the whole surface. There are still wood chips, but we did certain areas so that
Okay,
there's accessibility. So we've used these companies before and we've used these products before. They're industry standard. They're very widely used and safe. And actually considerably, probably safer than what we currently have. So it'll be an improvement over what we have existing. And then I knew the disposal of this material I know is difficult. I actually called Groot to see if we could get our guys to do it and Groot will not take it. So I'm not sure, we'd have to find somebody to take the material, and it's also pretty labor intensive and it's at prevailing wage rates. So I think that's
Oh.
probably built into that number, but this is certainly something we can bid and get multiple quotes on to make people.
we
feel
need to
more
explain,
comfortable.
Explain that, yeah.
do we need to explain prevailing wage? This could be a Pandora's box of conversation. Prevailing, you guys heard of prevailing wage? Jay, you want to do it?
Sure, prevailing wage, the county publishes a wage that we are required to pay on any public works projects for laborers of different classes. And so
It's page after page of, if you do
lists of
this job,
different-
you get this much per hour, this job, this much per hour.
right. And so we're not required to use union labor, but we are required to pay these prevailing wages that are set by the county quarterly. And all of our contractors, whenever we bid a project, we need to ask for and have documented that they're paying those wages.
And it's controversial because you could get it done for less if you're allowed to not use prevailing wage.
Right.
And the history is controversial because unions lobbied so that they could be competitive. So they're forcing the non-union contractors to pay the same rates as unions. And so it's a controversial subject that costs schools a lot of money.
I do just want to note, we are working with principals. Tracy's, Mrs. Rourke is working with the teachers. We're trying to be collaborative in the process of how we design this too, because we have little ones who are utilizing the back playgrounds that we want to grow into this in a seamless transition, moving to the front playground and just have different activities and trying to get a lot of input to make sure that this is exactly what we want as well.
Do we still have to vote every year on the accepting prevailing wages?
No, we no longer need to.
That was the one time we had a
no.
rebellious vote in the district because we all rejected it, but then our lawyer said, you have to approve it.
Yeah, we no longer have to approve the prevailing wage resolution.
Okay, any other questions on any of that? So we're gonna move on to action items. Our first action item is the approval of the Lake Bluff Teachers Council Memorandum of Understanding, also known as an MOU. As discussed at our August 24th, 2021 regular Board of Education meeting, the board is asked to approve the Memorandum of Understanding with LBTC. Just as to refresh your memories, the MOU has to do with regarding improving clarity in the language in the current teacher's contract surrounding retirement and eligibility for retirement. So it was just a matter of getting the language straight so parties on both sides really understand what the intent is. So may I have a motion to approve the LBTC Memorandum of Understanding as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, questions, comments, concerns? And may I have a roll call, please?
Tim Penich,
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue,
Yes.
Andy Duran,
Yes.
Ann Hill, yes. Mark Barry.
Yes,
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach.
Yes.
motion's approved. Item B, the approval of the Lake Bluff Library Intergovernmental Agreement. As discussed on our August 24th meeting, the regular Board of Education meeting, the board is asked to approve the intergovernmental agreement with Lake Bluff Library. If you recall, we've been doing this to provide library access to students in Lake Bluff District 65 who do not live in the village in outside of the school year. So in the summers, they have access to the library. It costs the district about $1,000 a year, correct?
Yes.
Any questions or comments on that?
Where did we ever end up with it was a stop at 8th grade, I believe.
Hold on.
And we had discussed extending
school.
it through high school.
I have not begun that conversation yet,
Okay.
but I will follow up.
Okay.
Any other questions? May I have a motion to approve the Lake Bluff Library intergovernmental agreement as presented by the administration?
Approved. Or
So
So moved,
moved.
sorry. And I approve it.
That's the word.
Sorry.
Second, anybody?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Wait, who was the second?
One of us.
Yeah.
You don't need it. I said approved.
It's done.
Amy Connell Donahue,
Yes.
Andy Duran,
Yes.
Ann Hill, yes. Mark Barry.
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach.
Yes.
Tim Pettit.
All right, motion's approved. Item C is the approval of the Olsen Transportation Driver Incentive Bonus. Also discussed at our August 24th, 2021 regular Board of Education meeting. The board is asked to approve the Olsen Transportation Driver Incentive Bonus, the details of which are laid out in your board packet for anybody to read. I think, Jay, you said that the total cost of the district is
22,500.
22.5. Anybody have any further questions or comments or discussion about that? We have been having a heck of a time getting and retaining bus drivers, so that's the whole idea, is to keep people, because we want consistency for our routes. May I have a motion to approve the Olsen Transportation Driver Incentive Bonus as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
roll call vote, please.
Andy Duran,
Yes.
Ann Hill, yes. Mark Barry.
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach.
Yes.
Tim Penich.
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Item D, approval of the 7th grade outdoor education trip. Can I let either you or Nate summarize that for us briefly? Would you mind?
I'm happy to jump in.
Yes, please. Thanks, Nate.
So right now we're slated to depart for that trip on this coming Thursday and Friday. Does not involve an overnight as it has in years past, but we're pleased to be able to arrive at school and bring our kids in a little bit early and have a long day. So we're planning to depart at 8 o'clock and then arrive back to school at approximately 8:30 in the evening, and in that way be able to do almost all of the activities that we have traditionally done on our 7th grade outdoor education trip, just simply without the overnight portion in the cabins. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, but we're definitely excited, pending board approval, to be able to take our students and have this experience outdoors. One of the big advantages being that we don't have to wear the masks outdoors, and so it'll be a nice way to be able to connect with our kids.
And funds are available to help with families who can't afford this, correct?
That is correct, yes, and is considered part of our curriculum. Those who've already applied and been approved for fee waivers are all set for this trip, and we ask that any parents in need of financial assistance reach out.
Okay. Any questions?
Just one. Why do we normally approve? Why is it a board approval this time around and not?
I think it's the expenditure, right?
Well,
Or is that more
It's
than
more
100
than 100
miles?
miles
No,
from-
more than 100 miles.
100 miles and also out of state, I believe, are both.
By
Yeah.
board policy.
Thank you.
Okay, so may I have a motion to approve the 7th grade outdoor education trip as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
May I have a roll call vote?
Ann Hill, yes. Mark Barry.
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach.
Yes.
Tim Penich.
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue.
Yes.
Andy Duran.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Item E, the approval of the school maintenance project grant. We discussed this earlier tonight. The board is asked to approve the application for a school maintenance grant in the amount of $50,000 and reserve local funds in the amount of $50,000 to meet the matching grant. The grant will fund a $125,000 project to make our elementary school playground accessible to students of all abilities. Any questions, comments, discussion on that? May I have a motion to approve the school maintenance project grant as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mark Barry.
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach. Tim Penich.
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue.
Yes.
Andy Duran.
Yes.
Ann Hill, yes.
The motion is approved. Item F, the approval of the 21-22 final budget. As we spent time at our budget hearing earlier this evening, as well as at our September 14th meeting, the board is asked to approve the 2021 final budget. As Jay had mentioned, it is a balanced budget. with operating expenses in the neighborhood of $18 million and total budget of around $20 million. Is there any comments, questions, or concerns about that? May I have a motion to approve the 2021-22 final budget as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Carrie Steinbach,
Yes.
Tim Penich,
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue,
Yes.
Andy Duran,
Yes.
Ann Hill, yes, Mark Barry,
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
The budget motion is approved. Item G, the approval of the press policy updates. This is the final approval as discussed at the September 14th Committee of the Whole meeting. And at the budget meeting, the board is asked to approve the policies presented by the administration. So the policy committee did a lot of work reviewing, I lost, I had it counted out before, but I forgot what it
A
was.
lot, it's a lot.
A
yeah.
lot of policies.
And there are more coming.
And spent time on it. And I wonder if, is there any comment from any of the policy committee on any of those before we go for a motion to approve?
I just want to thank the policy committee members for their attention to detail. These are really not the most intriguing and engaging things to read and study. But our policy committee members have been really paying very close attention to make sure we're approving exactly what we want to say in the policy. And I appreciate it because it needs a lot of eyes. We did address some things in the tutoring policy. We have that, we've added that piece about, we want teachers to inform us if there's any tutoring going on. As you remember, the face covering policy is in there. We've removed the references to the do-it-yourself face coverings. So I think that pretty much sums up some of the adjustments. we wanted to make.
I'm going to ask an annoying question. I'm sorry, but on that tutoring policy, did our lawyer add that line?
No, so we asked, we wanted to have that line in there, match our ethics policy, as you recall. And I did discuss it with our attorneys. They're comfortable with that line being in there. As long as we have tutoring available in our policy as an option for teachers, we are assuming a general risk. And so whatever else we add to that is just our own safeguards to make sure that we're doing what we can to ensure that those are the most productive and safe relationships. But as long as tutoring is an option for our staff, there is a level that we're assuming.
My question was actually more nitpicky than that. Just on the choice of word, where I think it says that the person will provide notice the district.
No, we changed that. That was a typo.
Okay, so
We
it's
changed it to notify.
Okay,
Mhm.
good. So I was looking at an older version.
Nope, we changed it and it's updated in your packet.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns on board policy motion? All right, so may I have a motion to approve the press policy updates as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
May I have a roll call vote?
Ann Hill, yes, Mark Barry, Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach.
Yes.
Tim Penich,
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue,
Yes.
Andy Duran.
Yes.
Motion's approved. Let's see. Item H is the approval of the updated staffing plan. Administration recommends approving the addition of a 0.8 FTE lunchroom supervisor, bringing that total to an FTE of 1.0. We are also updating the addition of a health aide position needed for this year as well, which will assist the nurse in the middle school and make her life a little bit more tolerable, hopefully. And with all the paperwork and administrative work that's required because of the health crisis we're currently enduring. Any questions, comments, or concerns about any of that? So may I have a motion to approve the 2021-22 updated staffing plan as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Tim Penich,
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue,
Yes.
Andy Duran.
Yes.
Ann Hill, yes, Mark Barry.
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach.
Yes.
Motion's approved. Let's see, personnel report. Let me just find my personnel report here. We're required to read it. I downloaded the latest version at like 3 o'clock. Hopefully it hasn't changed since then.
I don't think so. There's 3 items. Do you want to hear?
I have it. Oh, you got it? All right. All right, so the personnel report this month includes.
Can you read that?
Can I make that bigger?
You can't do that.
I can do this. I have glasses. That's why I have my
It's
glasses.
not a touch screen.
No, here, I got it. I brought these, just let me use them. So this month's personnel report, oh, you boy, you guys should have given me a phonetic on that name. I apologize in advance for butchering somebody's name. A teaching assistant at the middle school by the name of Anukrithka Thangwami. I apologize, I'm really sorry. At the middle school effective September 20th for a new position at a salary of $17.36 an hour. Another non-licensed new hire, Willie Pyle, a lunchroom supervisor at elementary school effective September 27th for $25.50 an hour. And a resignation of Taylor Mitchell, teaching assistant at the elementary school effective August 10th, was hired but took another position. Thanks. Any questions or comments about that personnel report? And someday I'd like to learn how to respectfully pronounce that person's name correctly because I butchered it and I'm sorry about that. So no questions, comments, or discussion? May I have a motion to approve the September 24th, 2021 personnel report as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mark Barry,
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach.
Yes.
Tim Penich.
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue.
Yes.
Andy Duran.
Yes.
Ann Hill, yes.
The motion's approved. Item J is our consent agenda. And this month, the consent agenda includes, excuse me, our open session meeting minutes from the August 24th, 2021 regular Board of Education meeting, the September 2nd, 2021 policy review committee meeting notes, the September 14th, 2021 committee of the whole meeting. It also includes closed session meeting minutes from the August 24th, 2021 regular Board of Education meeting. It includes the treasurer's report, the impressed report, the bills report, and the P card report. Prior to voting for everything in the consent agenda, would anybody like any of that pulled out for separate discussion and separate voting? Not hearing anything. May I have a motion to approve the September 24th, 2021 consent agenda as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second, I'll second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Carrie Steinbach.
Yes.
Tim Penich.
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue.
Yes.
Andy Duran.
Yes.
Ann Hill, yes. Mark Barry.
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Motion is approved. That's it for action items. Item 9, FOIA request. There is one FOIA request in your board packets that people are more willing to take a look at, having to do with requests of records in the buildings, and that is being processed by the administrators. Item 10 is public comments. Shelley, is there anybody waiting for public comment?
I have none at this time.
Any written comment?
No.
No? Okay. Any board member comment? Anything else anybody would like to add as we close out? Thank you, everybody. So may I have a motion to adjourn at 8:17 PM?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.